Let me tell you a strange story. It's one of those tales that leave you wondering if it really happened or if your mind just played tricks on you. But here it goes. I want to share this experience because it shook me to my core, and I hope it warns you about the ghostly tales that can arise in unexpected places. Once, not so long ago, I was visiting California, driving along the coastal highways after a trip to visit my sister. She lives in a small town near the ocean, and I always look forward to our time together. After spending a few days soaking in the sun, exploring the local shops, and enjoying family meals, it was time for me to head back home. The drive was long, and I was ready to hit the road. I had a decent distance to cover, and the road stretched out before me like a long ribbon. I knew I would need to take a break soon. Rest stops are the perfect place for that. So I kept my eyes peeled for the next one. I finally spotted one on the horizon, a quaint little stop with colorful banners hanging in the breeze. I parked my car and made my way to the rest stop. The building looked ordinary enough, with a coffee shop on one side and a gift shop on the other. I took a deep breath, ready to stretch my legs and grab a snack before hitting the road again. As I walked inside, I noticed a small display of local crafts, but I didn't pay much attention. My only focus was the restroom. I hurried past the gift shop, and just as I approached the bathroom door, I felt a chill run down my spine. It was odd. The air suddenly felt heavier, as if something was lingering just out of sight. I shrugged it off and entered the bathroom. Inside, it was surprisingly empty. I could hear the faint humming of the lights overhead and the sound of water running from a nearby faucet. I headed straight for a stall, but just as I was about to enter, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. There she was, a woman in a beautiful Hmong dress, her dark hair cascading around her shoulders. She looked lost and sad, standing in the corner of the restroom. I paused, my heart racing. It felt strange to see her here. The dress was vibrant, adorned with intricate patterns, yet her face held a sadness that made my heart ache. I wanted to approach her, to ask if she needed help, but something kept me rooted in place. Then, she turned her head towards me, her eyes piercing through the dim light. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of grief wash over me. It was as if she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. Before I could respond, she suddenly vanished. One moment she was there, and the next it was as if the air had swallowed her whole. I stood frozen, trying to convince myself that I had imagined it. I stepped into the stall, trying to shake off the eerie feeling. But as I sat there, I couldn't shake the image of her from my mind. The bathroom around me began to feel suffocating, and I could swear I heard a faint sobbing echoing in the silence. My heart raced, and I finished quickly, wanting to leave this unsettling place. I washed my hands and hesitated at the door. Should I go back and see if the woman was still there? No, I couldn't. I opened the door, and as I stepped outside, I noticed the rest stop was now crowded. Families were milling about, chatting and laughing. The contrast was jarring. I shook off my unease and made my way to my car. But the image of the woman lingered in my thoughts. Who was she? What had she meant by, "help me"? As I drove away, I glanced in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see her standing there watching me leave. But there was nothing, only the fading rest stop behind me. To this day, I can't forget her haunting eyes and the sadness etched on her face. I don't know if she was a ghost, a figment of my imagination, or something else entirely, but I feel a strange connection to her. Maybe she was reaching out, looking for someone to share her story. So, if you ever find yourself in a restroom at a rest stop in California and feel an unexpected chill, take a moment. You never know who or what might be watching. My boyfriend and I live in the United States and were born in Thailand. We both are Hmong. Road trips always seem like a good idea in theory, or at least that's what I told myself when my boyfriend Ryan suggested we drive across California. Not only were we moving to the other side of the state, but he thought it would be more adventurous to make the trip by car instead of flying like any sane person. Despite all the arguing leading up to it, I knew deep down that I loved him, even as I glanced over to find him curled up in an uncomfortable ball, fast asleep in the passenger seat. His light snores made me smile in spite of everything. I cracked open another can of energy drink, probably my fourth that night. We'd been on the road for hours, and I was determined to push through until we reached our new apartment. Ryan stirred, rubbing his eyes as the neon lights from the highway flickered through the car windows. "What time is it?" he asked groggily, swiping the can from me and taking a long sip. "Too late for you to be drinking that," I teased. "You sleep through everything. I swear you're part vampire." He chuckled, still half asleep. "Are we almost there?" "Not sure," I shrugged. "All I know is that the same stretch of road's been repeating for the last hour. Feels like I'm in a time loop." Ryan squinted at me, then laughed. "Cornfields do tend to blend together. Let me check the map." He fumbled with his phone for a minute, squinting at the screen. "Looks like there's a shortcut up ahead," he said. "Turn right after the next exit, and then left. Should be a quicker way to get to the coast." "Are you sure?" I asked, a little wary of back roads at night. "Yeah, it's fine. It's a main road, just, scenic," he reassured me with a grin. We followed the route, the winding road taking us deeper into the countryside. At first it seemed peaceful, the sunset casting a warm glow over the hills. We passed a large house on top of a hill, its porch light flickering in the distance. Ryan sighed dreamily. "One day we'll live in a place like that," he said. I rolled my eyes, but deep down, I hoped he was right. We kept driving, but after what felt like half an hour, I realized something wasn't right. The map said it should have been a 10-minute detour, but we hadn't seen any signs for the main highway. "I think we missed the turn," I admitted. Ryan was unusually quiet. "What?" he finally said. "No way, I read the map wrong or something." He trailed off, staring out the window. We passed an old bus stop with its windows smashed, glass glinting under the streetlights. "Great. Probably a bunch of bored kids smashing things," I muttered. Ryan didn't respond. He was staring straight ahead, eyes wide. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Look," he said quietly, pointing ahead. Another bus stop. This one was smashed too, just like the first. "That's weird," I said, feeling a chill creep up my spine. "Must be more of those punks." But Ryan's face was pale, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the seat. 3 bus stops, in a row, on an empty road. I glanced out the window and froze. Up on the hill, the same house loomed, the porch light flickering just like before. My heart sank. We had driven in a circle. "This can't be real," Ryan muttered, eyes darting around. "We've been here before." "We're just tired," I said, trying to calm us both down. "Let's stop for a minute." I pulled the car over, turning off the engine. The silence felt oppressive. Ryan put his head in his hands, and I reached over to rub his back, trying to steady my own breathing. Suddenly, Ryan's head shot up, eyes wide with terror. "Drive, now," he whispered. "What?" "Drive," he shouted, slamming his hand on the dashboard. I didn't ask any more questions. I just hit the gas, the tires screeching as we sped down the road. My heart pounded in my chest as the lights flickered faster, one after another. Ryan was shaking, staring straight ahead. "Slow down!" he yelled, but I couldn't. The lights ahead were going out, one by one, leaving nothing but darkness. We were picking up speed, but the road felt endless. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw something fluttering in the air behind us, glowing faintly in the dim light. At first I thought it was a trick of the headlights, but it wasn't. It was real. A creature with enormous butterfly wings that shimmered in the shadows was hovering above the road. Its body, long and human-like, was covered in scales that caught the light as it moved. Its skin gleamed like a snake's, slick and unnatural. Its arms were elongated, too long for its body, with hands that stretched out like talons, each finger impossibly long. "What the hell is that?" I gasped. Ryan turned, and his face drained of color. "Just drive," he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. The creature was gaining on us, its wings beating silently, propelling it closer and closer. Its eyes were fixed on the car, glowing in the dark like two burning coals. I pushed the gas pedal to the floor, the engine roaring as we raced down the dark road. The creature swooped lower, its wings casting eerie shadows over the car. I could feel its presence growing, the air around us becoming heavy and thick. The lights ahead of us continued to flicker out one by one, as if the creature's arrival had drained the life from everything around it. "We have to get off this road," Ryan said, his voice trembling. "It's following us." But there was nowhere to go. The road stretched on endlessly, the darkness creeping in on both sides. The creature was almost on top of us now, its long hands reaching out, talons glinting in the faint light. I could hear the faint flutter of its wings, like the sound of silk rustling in the wind. "I can't outrun it," I said, my voice breaking as panic overtook me. The creature was right above us, its long arms reaching down towards the car. Suddenly the car sputtered, the fuel light flashed on. We were out of gas. "No," I whispered, gripping the wheel as the car began to slow down. The creature swooped lower, its wings wrapping around the car, casting everything in darkness. Ryan grabbed my hand, squeezing it tightly. "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears streaming down my face as the last streetlight flickered and died, leaving us in complete blackness. The creature's talons scraped across the roof of the car, the sound of metal screeching echoing in the dark. Its eyes glowed brighter, its wings fluttering gently as it descended, wrapping itself around us like a nightmare brought to life. I woke up in a hospital bed, the fluorescent lights above me blindingly bright. My whole body felt sore, but I could move. I looked around, searching for Ryan. He was in the bed next to mine, eyes wide open and staring at the ceiling. "Ryan," I croaked, my voice weak. He turned his head slowly, eyes filled with confusion and terror. I reached up to my face, feeling something wrong. My mouth, it felt empty. I touched my lips, then my gums. Panic set in as I realized what was missing. All my teeth were gone. I looked over at Ryan, and his hand was shaking as he did the same. His teeth were missing too. We looked at each other speechless, and in the strangest mix of pain and horror. The doctors couldn't explain it. They said we'd been in an accident, but they didn't find our teeth. Not in the car, not anywhere. That was the last road trip I'll ever go on. Well, folks, this is quite the tale. You might think it's a tall tale, but as strange as it sounds, I swear it really happened. Nowadays, you don't hear many stories about miracles or the supernatural. When they do pop up, they usually get a logical explanation and fade into nothing. This story might get that treatment too, but I'm not seeking attention. I just want to share what I encountered. Let me take you back to a chilly evening in California. I was visiting a friend in Los Angeles after attending a family gathering in San Francisco. It was a quick trip. I rarely got to see my family, so I made the most of it. After the gathering, I decided to take a scenic route back home, enjoying the beautiful coastline. The drive was going smoothly until I realized I needed to stop at a rest area. As I cruised down the Pacific Coast Highway, I spotted a rest area ahead. The building stood tall, a perfect place to stretch my legs and freshen up. It looked like any typical rest area you'd find along the highway. I parked my car, relieved to finally get a break from driving. I stepped inside, and immediately, I was hit by an odd sensation. The air felt heavy, almost electric, and I could sense something unusual. The rest area was relatively empty, save for a few travelers who seemed preoccupied with their own business. I made my way to the restroom, the door creaking as I entered. Once inside, the flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows on the tiled walls. As I reached for a stall, I felt a sudden chill. The room seemed to grow colder, and I glanced around uneasily. The restroom was nearly empty, but as I approached a stall, I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye. A figure stood at the far end, dressed in traditional Hmong clothing. She looked ethereal, her long hair cascading down her back. She seemed out of place, almost as if she had stepped out of another time. My heart raced as I tried to process what I was seeing. Was this a ghost? I rubbed my eyes, thinking it was just my imagination. But when I looked again, she was still there, her expression somber yet inviting. I hesitated, unsure whether to approach her or leave the restroom altogether. Curiosity got the better of me. I took a cautious step closer. The ghost lady turned her gaze toward me, her eyes filled with a profound sadness. She raised her hand, beckoning me to follow her. Against my better judgment, I walked toward her. As I got closer, the atmosphere changed. The air grew heavy with the scent of jasmine, a fragrance I couldn't quite place. She pointed toward the restroom exit, and I glanced back, realizing the lights flickered even more violently. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, feeling a mix of fear and intrigue. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, a vision flooded my mind. I saw her standing on top of a building, looking over the city as if she was waiting for someone. Suddenly, she faded from view, and I felt an overwhelming sense of loss. Panicked, I turned to leave the restroom, but the door slammed shut. I was trapped. My heart raced as I pulled on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I could hear whispers echoing around me, and the temperature dropped even further. The ghost lady appeared again, this time standing in front of the stall door. "Help me," she seemed to say, though her lips didn't move. Her eyes bore into me, pleading. I felt a strange connection to her. I wanted to help, but how could I? I thought back to the vision. Was she waiting for someone? I felt compelled to respond. "What do you need?" I called out, my voice trembling. The lights flickered more intensely, and she pointed upward toward the roof of the building. Suddenly, the restroom door swung open, releasing a gust of cold air. I stumbled backward, catching my breath. In a daze, I rushed outside, looking for a way to the roof. I followed the stairs, heart pounding, until I reached the top. There, on the rooftop, I saw her again, standing at the edge, looking out over the sprawling city. "What do you want?" I asked, breathless. She turned to me, her expression softening. "I am lost," she replied, her voice echoing in my mind. "I seek closure." In that moment, I understood. She wanted to be remembered, to tell her story. I felt a rush of empathy wash over me. I took a step closer and asked, "How can I help you find peace?" She pointed to the sunset, the colors painting the sky in brilliant hues. "Tell my story," she whispered, her form becoming more transparent. "Help others remember." As the last light of day disappeared, she vanished into the twilight, leaving me with a sense of calm. I knew then that I had to share her story. From that day forward, I made it my mission to honor her memory. I told my friends and family about the ghost lady in Hmong clothes, about her sadness and her longing for recognition. Her spirit lingered in my heart, reminding me of the importance of remembering those we've lost. So, if you ever find yourself near a rest area in California, keep an eye out for the ghost lady. She might be waiting for you, hoping for someone to tell her story. You never know what might happen next.